In 2019, a massive polar vortex hit Chicago and other parts of the United States. But many people were unprepared for such freezing temperatures, especially those living in the southern states. And as it turned out, millions of Americans experienced freezing for the first time in their lives. So we decided to show you a city that froze completely in just 30 seconds. But before moving on, we kindly ask you to support our work with a thumbs up. Welcome back to the channel. Where do you live? Surely you've heard about the severe weather conditions in some U.S. cities. For example, people living in Hawaii rarely see snow, because the average temperature there is about 78 degrees Fahrenheit, or 26 degrees Celsius. The last time it snowed there was back in 1961. Some Americans have never seen snow in their entire lives. In fact, there are people who don't even know what a snow shovel is. There was a man from Louisiana who did and believed that snow existed until he moved to Minnesota at 28 years old. One day he went outside and saw all the white stuff falling from the sky. Needless to say, the man was shocked. But let's go back to the polar vortex that hit America in early 2019. A polar vortex is a large area of low pressure and cold air that occurs in the Arctic Circle. Normally, this phenomenon stays in the North Pole and doesn't bother anyone. But sometimes the jet stream weakens and the polar vortex breaks out of its usual boundaries. When that happens, the cold air hits the lower layers of the atmosphere and moves toward populated areas. That's when it starts to get dangerous. And so it happened in the United States. From January to February 2019, millions of people across the country experienced temperatures much below zero. Even though some states occasionally face freezing temperatures, most Americans aren't used to that, so they weren't prepared for such weather. It's actually hard to believe, but many people have never seen snow in their lives. Some of them probably think it is some kind of a fairy dust that only appears in holiday movies. And if you're from Louisiana, you definitely should keep an eye on the weather forecast. Cities in the southern states were mostly affected by the polar vortex, including Houston, San Antonio, and Dallas. For example, on January 2019, the temperature in Dallas dropped to 5 degrees Fahrenheit, which is about 15 degrees Celsius. People couldn't come to terms with what was happening. Many residents left comments on social media saying that they had never seen anything like this before. You've probably seen videos of people from the South trying to touch the ice cubes for the first time and acting like they're retouching a live wire. Well, this time it was a little bit different. The polar vortex caused chaos not only in people's lives but also in nature. You can't imagine how many pipes burst during that cold snap. The water utility in Dallas spent more than $24 million to fix the damaged pipes. And it wasn't the only city to experience that. The infrastructure in Texas was in no way prepared for such temperatures. Even the famous Hollywood actor Matthew McConaughey, who was born and raised in Texas, said that he had unseen the weather that bad since 1985. It got so cold that cars had to be stored in heated garages. In Houston, many people suffered not only because of the cold, but also because of power outages. Public transportation stopped working, schools were closed, and even grocery stores ran out of food. But the thing that surprised everyone the most was the icicles. They were hanging from every tree branch, roof, and power line. Some of these formations were as thick as a man's torso. It looked like the whole city was set for a giant display of icicles. Storms can be pretty dangerous. Walking under trees, riding a bike, or driving a car under them can be life-threatening. Plus, many trees got broken due to the weight of the ice. But still, most people were more concerned about what would happen to their cars. It's no secret that Texas has one of the highest rates of car insurance in the United States. And that's easy to explain. The weather in Texas is quite unpredictable. Severe thunderstorms, heavy rains, hailstorms, and now freezing temperatures. Texans are literally forced to buy insurance for any occasion. In 2011, a hailstorm hit the city of San Antonio. Hailstones weighing over 4 pounds and measuring 5 inches in diameter fell from the sky. These were the largest hailstones in the history of Texas and maybe the whole United States. But let's get back to the winter of 2019. People parked their cars outside, covered them with blankets, and even put sweaters on them. Nothing could have saved the vehicles from the freezing temperatures. As a result, thousands of cars were left covered in ice. Some people thought it was a good idea to take pictures against the backdrop of these icy landscapes. Others, on the contrary, wanted to get away from this winter wonderland as soon as possible and flew to warmer places. And it wasn't just ordinary people who reacted that way. Even local businesses were affected. Many of them simply couldn't work during the freezing temperatures. But some companies came up with an ingenious solution. For example, instead of closing the production, a Ford factory in Chicago started making car blankets. Yeah, employees were literally sewing blankets for the cars. In addition, the plant provided its employees with warm clothes and meals. But what about those people who couldn't stay indoors during the freezing temperatures? How did they survive the polar vortex? Well, some people prefer to stay at home. During such periods, it's important to take care of vulnerable neighbors, especially the elderly. If you see an elderly person struggling to remove the snow, don't be too lazy to help them. It may take you only a few minutes to help someone in need. And also, make sure to check the weather forecast regularly. You'd better be prepared in advance. It is a good idea to have a flashlight and a battery-powered radio in your home in case the lights go out. Also, learn how to use alternative cooking methods. If gas stops working, learn how to cook outdoors. You can use a grill, a barbecue, or build a bonfire. Don't forget to stock up on food and water in advance. Canned food, dry cereal, nuts, and canned drinks will last a long time. Now let's talk about how the polar vortex differs from a blizzard. Despite the fact that both phenomena are associated with snow and low temperatures, they are completely different. A blizzard is a strong wind that picks up snow from the ground and carries it through the air. This creates poor visibility, making it difficult to navigate and increasing the danger of getting lost. Blizzards usually last several hours, but they can also drag on for days. As for the polar vortex, it's a mass of cold air rather than a storm. However, it can cause extremely low temperatures, making it equally dangerous. To protect yourself from the cold, you should wear warm clothes in several layers. Cover your mouth to prevent heat loss, and don't forget to wear gloves, a hat, and a scarf. And even if you think your house is well insulated, you'd better check everything in advance. Look for drafts near windows and doors, and cover them with adhesive tape or plastic wrap. Also, check the condition of the heating system and repair it in time. By the way, according to the National Weather Service, the temperature in Chicago dropped to 27 degrees Fahrenheit in January 2019. The last time it was that cold there was back in 1985. So if you live in a place where temperatures below zero are uncommon, please share your experience with us. What did you do to survive the cold? And how do you feel about winter in general? Do you like it or do you hate it? Leave a comment about it down below. Also, here's another video that might interest you. See you later.